A series of major earthquakes just struck far eastern Russia, generating a tsunami and actually triggering activity at a non-erupting but potentially dangerous active volcano. This series of events began late yesterday evening when, east of Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula, the first of more than 40 felt quakes occurred at 6:02 p.m. local time. The first quake registered in as a modest 5.0, shaking the ground for several seconds but causing no discernible damage. But, unbeknownst at the time, this merely represented a foreshock preceding an even larger earthquake that would soon follow. Then, at 6:28 p.m., a magnitude 6.6 earthquake struck, causing the ground to notably shake back and forth for 15 continuous seconds, shaking household items but not causing any damage. And yet, for the second time in a row, this particular quake was a foreshock once again, and soon the largest earthquake of the day would follow. This occurred 21 minutes later when at 6:49 p.m. a major magnitude 7.4 earthquake centered 90 miles east of the largest Kamchatkan city of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky struck. This time the quake was different, lasting for 23 seconds, causing items to fall off of shelves in stores and actually generating a tsunami. Tsunami warnings were quickly issued that warned of the potential for damaging waves to strike within this 300-kilometer radius. A true megathrust earthquake had occurred, and due to its magnitude, for all intents and purposes, a 1 to 3 meter high tsunami should have been on its way. And yet, as the minutes ticked by, while people from afar may have noticed some unusual occurrence, there was no apparent tsunami. As people waited during the next hour, a dozen additional magnitude 4, 5, and 6 earthquakes struck, including 2 more magnitude 6.6s, but still there was no major tsunami and only negligible damage. As additional earthquakes continued to follow that were felt in the few local cities, the tsunami warning was completely cancelled. It turns out that those unusual currents in the water were the tsunami, it just never reached any higher than a mere 4 centimeters or 1.6 inches. This is quite strange, as if you take the purely upward vector of the earthquake which struck, you get an upwards motion of a sizable 2.7 meters or 8.9 feet across those 23 seconds. And yet, the snapback upwards of the Okhotsk plate didn't generate a sizable tsunami for an unusual reason. To better explain what happened, here is a chart displaying the amount the ground moved across a sizable length, width, and depth. Unlike most earthquakes, which did produce damaging tsunamis, for some reason only about 2% of this motion actually transferred upwards to the surface, with the most extreme ground motion occurring 24 kilometers or 14.9 miles below ground. And this is why a very small non-damaging tsunami is actually consistent with the observed scientific data. Normally, I would end the story here, but for once, the repeated earthquake shaking actually appears to have affected a specific nearby volcano. What I'm referring to is Avachinsky, the easternmost of 2 closely spaced stratovolcanoes which has produced a dozen highly explosive eruptions in the Holocene and many more smaller eruptions. While uncommon, large magnitude earthquakes can sometimes trigger earthquakes at or around known magma chambers, and in even rarer circumstances, can even trigger a volcano already on the verge of erupting to actually erupt. This generally only is possible if a volcano's magma chamber experiences at least MMI 5 intensity shaking. Avachinsky, for reference, had been fairly quiet since it last erupted in 2001, producing not even a single plume during the last week. However, that changed, albeit briefly, 27 minutes after the magnitude 7.4 earthquake struck, as at 7:16 p.m. the volcano let out a several-minute-long and 1,000-foot-high gas plume which thereafter disappeared. While this could signal deep magmatic activity, I am instead of the opinion that earthquake motion merely squeezed gas in a rising pathway to the surface outwards, much like squeezing water in a pool noodle. Regardless, I will continue to observe if anything changes in the upcoming days at this towering stratovolcano. As a final note, I would like to thank my returning patron William Baumgardner for supporting my work.